Thank you everyone for attending our webinar today, Fundamentals of Web Design with Dreamweaver CS6. My name is George Bucco. I'm the Senior Product Manager here at Trinity. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially host this webinar, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background about Trinity and our platform. But the majority of this presentation will be carried by the two authors of the book, Cavanaugh and Sheri German, who will be joining us as well. So I kind of have them waiting in the wings, and I will bring them on in just a few moments. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk a little bit about the Trinity platform and our motivations for creating a digital textbook. As a company, we realized that even with the many ebook offerings that are out there, we're still teaching in the way that it has been done for over 100 years. Even if you have PDFs, they're still static images, students are not connected, and there's no option for collaboration. We felt that textbooks needed to catch up with the digital world. And when we say catch up, we meant by including videos, by including high-resolution images, and other web-based content. We also wanted to make it easier to use for authors to create and to co-author, and for the ability to update that content on the author's schedule and not on a longer publisher schedule. And finally, we wanted to be able to bring in other materials online, such as LMS features, such as assignments and question pools and quizzes, and to provide all this to students at a lower cost. So again, the benefits of a digital textbook for students, making it easy to access the content from anywhere. Students are interconnected from different types of devices in different locations. They should be able to access their book wherever they are. We wanted to make it easy to follow for a learning sequence. And we also wanted them to be able to personalize it. So instead of having, again, a static PDF kind of file, we wanted to make it so that they could create their own notes on their own personal copy of the book. We also wanted to avoid the idea of renting a book as well. We want to provide this as a permanent online reference. And once again, all at a reduced cost from what a lot of students are seeing today. For instructors, what we wanted to do is give them a lot of flexibility. Many instructors start with a course material, but they add their own notes, and they might want to teach it in a way that's not in the same order that the book has been presented. So we wanted to allow them that kind of flexibility. And then to also add their own assignments, their own labs, their own lessons, as well as quizzes and question banks. And then to be able to manage and view their online class activity, essentially bringing all the students into one location. So at Trinity, we have a fully integrated end-to-end solution. So we start with the content, which is the course material, and we've got, again, great authors that are creating that. We're also working with publishers to bring that material together. We also tie that together with some learning management capabilities, as I mentioned, being able to add assignments so that students can upload their content or to take exams and quizzes online, as well as having the ability to allow students to collaborate, to message each other, and to be able to work whether they are in a blended learning environment or an environment that is actually in a brick-and-mortar school, if you will. So how it works is that what we do is we provide the course material, and this would be the original book that we would be selling. And then instructors now would have the ability to add their own exercises, quizzes, exams, surveys. And once they've created that customized course, they then make that available to their students. Students purchase access to the course, and again, they purchase access to that instance of the course so that they are all in essentially a micro-social network, if you will, which means that they can see the other students that are in the course, they can send messages back and forth to them, but they have a little bit of privacy. We do not expose the students' email addresses. Everything is messaged through the system. The other things that can be added to a course are forums. Students can annotate, they can have discussions, and then they can tie in with student participation. But the other thing with the Trinity platform is that once the course has been established and set up, If there's, for example, some news that comes up that would affect the course, the instructor has the ability to go in and modify certain content so that the course truly is alive. It's not a monolithic course that is fixed on day one of the class. It can be very flexible throughout the year. So at this point, what I'd like to do is I would like to pass the baton over to our two authors today. We have Sheri German. She is the author of 3 books on Dreamweaver, and I'll let her and Kim Cavanaugh introduce themselves.
My name is Kim Cavanaugh, and I am blessed to be part of a team that's been writing about Dreamweaver for a considerable amount of time. My co-author Sheri will be along here to speak to her part of the book in a few minutes. And we began the process of converting a lot of content that we had available only in the United Kingdom into the Trinity Platform last year, and completed this book, and are really excited about working with Trinity and the kind of things that this sort of platform allows us to do as authors that we were never able to do before. And even when I compare the experience of what is available to teachers and instructors and students using the Trinity platform as opposed to what you might find in a standard learning management system, I'm really still very excited by what we're able to do with the Trinity platform. So we're looking at the book, and I'm assuming that you can see that now. This is, again, and I'm going to detail a couple of things that I really like, again, about Trinity as we go along. One of the things that really drew me to Trinity right from the beginning was when you compare how the student is presented with the learning materials themselves within this platform. It's considerably different from what you would see in a standard learning management system. Got a lot of experience in working with a lot of different platforms, and I've never been very happy with the learner's experience. The experience of navigating through the book, the experience of, or through a course, the experience of finding the content that you want to be able to find, and some of the things that really sort of our expectations of students today are difficult to do in a lot of the platforms. Many of them have a lot of really nice gee whiz sort of things that you can do as an instructor, but Trinity's got what I think is probably one of the best user interfaces that I've seen anywhere. So as we're looking at the book, and this is an example of what the book would look like for an instructor or a student. I'm actually logged in as an instructor here in the demonstration site. But as George mentioned, the beauty of this platform is the fact that anytime Sheri or I need to add content to the book, a student or an instructor makes an observation on how something can be improved, or we come across a great resource that we want to share with every single instructor who uses the book, all we have to do is update our master copy of the book, and those changes are automatically published out into every instance of the book. So there's no copying and pasting, there's no going into multiple locations, there's none of the kind of extra work that might be required in some learning management systems. As the authors, as the keeper of the keys for the main content of the course, all Sheri and I have to do is make that change, publish it to the master copy, and that's automatically pushed out to every individual who has access to the book, whether they're in a course or they're viewing the standalone book they purchased on their own. So that's, again, one of the key things that we really like about it. Some of the other things, again, I love the fact that there is a section on the left-hand side that allows you to move from one chapter to the next very easily. A lot of learning management systems are set up in a very linear fashion where you work from top to bottom. The Trinity platform allows us to chapterize these things, and I'm just going to click on chapter 1 to sort of jump out and have a look at that real quickly. And then within each chapter, there's a very logical flow to the way that the content is presented to the student. So we begin, in our book, we begin every chapter with a look at not only the learning objectives of the chapter, but also the alignment to the Adobe Certified Associate examination. So we have taken all the content in this book, and this is something we've done for a number of years, and Sheri and I both take the exam every year. We both serve on some advisory committees with Adobe to help them understand what kind of things students should be learning. And so we provide alignments for the ACA exam throughout the book. It's completely aligned. The other thing that's quite unique about this book is the ability to give our students their exercise files directly within the content of each chapter. This is particularly important for a book on Dreamweaver, where you need to be able to have access as an instructor to all the samples that then go with the hands-on activities that the students actually perform. So if I'm ready to begin Chapter 1 and I want to download those files, all I have to do is click on that link, and then we have the download file. And we actually, in Chapter 1, actually start out students with a couple of videos on how to unzip or unarchive those files because they are in zip format. So we don't really assume in this book that students really have any base knowledge. They should be able to understand what a web browser is, but beyond that, we don't really expect them to have an understanding of HTML or web design. The assumption we make is that your students are going to be coming in off the street without any background knowledge at all. So we begin the book by looking at really kind of a little bit of a history of the internet. We look at how the web itself works. One of the things that George mentioned is the ability to have these really nice high-definition graphics that we use throughout the book. And by clicking on that, you can bring up a full-size version of these. You get to see my daughter kissing a dolphin, one of my favorite pictures that I've ever taken of her. She gets to be in all my books as a result. You'll also notice that the navigation also is quite intuitive. There are chapter markers on the right-hand side that let you jump from one section to the next. And we move through the course. In the beginning of the course, we actually start out very early on introducing students to HTML and the fundamentals of how web pages are delivered. So again, we spend a lot of time talking and really kind of laying things out for students so they understand how the web works. And then we jump into Chapter 2, where we cover a lot of the soft skills that we know are required of students today. They're certainly part of the ACA examination. This ability to examine your audience, work with a team. These are important considerations when students have to sit for the ACA exam. We go through the fundamentals of the website planning. We talk about creating site maps, and we even make sure that students understand everything that there is to know about paths and site structure. And then we go into our first projects. And so some of our first projects, again, these are sort of soft skills. So we feature an incredible amount of step-by-step instructions. This makes it easy, we feel, from an instructor's viewpoint, for your students to follow along and to complete these projects on their own. We also include within the book a number of things like client interview worksheets that students could then complete, and instructors can assign them as a homework assignment or a class assignment, as the case may be. All of those are included within the website itself. Now, moving along into Chapter 3 here, I'm going to take a quick look. Again, every chapter begins with the learning objectives. Every chapter makes sure that the students understand what they will be learning within that chapter. And also, again, we have the ACA exam, and we have the exercise files for every chapter as we move along. And in this chapter, we begin the process of helping students understand the Dreamweaver interface itself. So they learn they learn all about the functional areas of the Dreamweaver workspace. And again, we look at all of the different options that are available, and we look at all the different buttons and all the different things, and kind of break it out in a very logical way with lots of call-outs, lots of references to the different aspects of the Dreamweaver UI. And we include all that within the chapter as we move along. So all the fundamental things that students have to understand, not only for the ACA exam, but also for understanding just how to use the different aspects of the Dreamweaver workflow, or the working environment. Now, some of the other things that we really like about the the Trinity Platform is the ability for students to do things like annotate, or basically take notes as they move along. So as you see here, I've basically just highlighted a section of text. I'm going to click on annotate, and as a student, I can go in and I can make notes and keep these bits of information within my my own personal learning environment that lets me kind of reinforce the things that I'm learning, take notes on what the instructor has covered, and so forth. Let's save that right within here, and it's always available to me as a student. So really kind of a nice way for students to be able to do that. Once you've annotated a certain part of the text, notice that every instance of that item now is highlighted and allows the student to go back and review their notes. So very, kind of advanced way for students to take a look at how information has been presented to them. So we, again, we go through the fundamentals, and then we get right into building your first web page. This is where we go into the all-important aspect of actually defining websites within Dreamweaver. And Sheri and I take a very measured and very, measured, I already said that, but we take a what we think is a very logical approach. When we laid out this book, we knew that we had two things that we wanted to accomplish for students. The first objective really is for students to be able to pass the Adobe Certified Associates exam. That is an expectation that many schools have and many students have as well. We've had great success with this course material in the United Kingdom in having students pass the ACA exam, and we brought the same kind of detailed approach to all of the different learning objectives of the ACA exam to this book as well. But in addition to that, this book also prepares students for actual real jobs in a modern work environment. And so while we begin with things that are very fundamental, like how web pages are built, how HTML works, how to define your first website, how to lay out the structure of the site, by the time a student has completed a course that uses this book that is fundamental, as you can see over on the left-hand side, and as Sheri is going to talk to, we go into a lot of advanced content as well. And I wouldn't really even consider this to be advanced content necessarily. If a student is going to leave your class and wants to go out and have a job or work in an office where they have expectations of using HTML5, understanding how CSS3 works, understanding things like fluid grids and jQuery, and the kinds of things that people are expected to do as professional web developers are these days, you can be assured as an instructor that they will be well prepared for the modern working world of web design. This is not baked over content, from static web design the way it was done 6 or 8 or 10 years ago. This is current and it's up to date. And in addition to all of the material that we cover here, and I think Sheri's going to dip into this just a little bit, we also offer instructors materials that allow students to, or allow instructors to go ahead and have additional material that they can have for their students. We also have an exam test bank that we provide with many of the questions that are quite similar to what students would find within the ACA exam. So that's provided along with the book, and instructors can build their own course material and add to the questions and create their own question banks. And before I turn it over to Sheri, just one last thing, and that's really, again, the freedom that this platform allows for instructors is really quite remarkable. Although we take we have provided the content, we have provided the roadmap for how students can progress from knowing nothing about web design to understanding how to actually do the kind of things that they would be required to do in their working world. The platform itself is flexible enough so that instructors can add their own material. They can reorganize the content. They can decide to do things in a different order. They can hide particular things that they don't want their students to do. So even though the core material is found within a textbook that's available to us as the authors, as the instructor using the book, you have complete freedom, as you would with any learning management system, to reorganize the content, add to the content, and present it in a way that works best for you and the students that you're working with.
What I'm going to do, again, this is George, I'm going to jump back in to the gradebook portion of the book and show some of the other features of the Trinity platform. Okay, and so, again, as I mentioned at the outset, what we were trying to do was create an online presence, an online platform, so that all the content and all of the features that students would need access to would be in a single location. So we don't have to have them logging on to get to access to the book, or logging on to have access to online materials or to learning management content. And so what we've done is we've provided the ability to create assignments and exams right within the platform. And so here I am, I'm logged on as a student, and what you can do is you can create assignments for the so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on as an instructor, and I'm going to show you how we can create an assignment. So let me just I'm going to bring a different web screen on here. This is myself logged on as an instructor for the course. And what I'm going to do is, as an instructor, you have the ability to create content. So what I'm going to do is I can add articles, I can add news and videos, and I can also add assignments. So what I'll do is I'll add an assignment, and again I can title this. This could be for Chapter 1. Call it Chapter 1 assignment. I could give a description for the assignment, code the following. And what you'll notice is when you're entering the information, it's a web editor. If you're familiar using any word processor, Word, for example, you'll be very comfortable creating this. You can also set the total points for a particular assignment. So let me just give that 10 points. And you can also determine where you want to place it in the course. So, for example, here I'd like to put it in Chapter 1, and I will click Create. And now, as you work on your content, it is not visible to the students until you actually publish it. So that means that you can work on different articles or content, and if it's not ready to be seen, as long as it's not published, it will not be visible. But in this case, I'm going to click on Publish. And again, this is quite simple assignment there. And so as the instructor, when I look at the assignment, what I will see is a listing of all the students that have joined the course, and I can see what their grades are. So in this case, no one has submitted anything yet. So what I'll do is I'm going to hop over, and now I'm logged on as John, and he is a student in the course. And so if I go to Chapter 1, at the bottom I will find the Chapter 1 assignment that I just created. So as the student, he would click on that assignment, he would get the information, code the following, he would enter, he could either type in information here, or what he could do is he could attach a file. So if he just browses and he finds, let's not do that. I'll just grab a file here. Let's say you wanted to upload a PowerPoint. You could do that, and then we could save that submission. And so now, if I go back to the instructor's point of view, for the instructor has a gradebook option for the course. So by clicking on the gradebook, the instructor can see a listing of all of the different assignments that have been added to the program, to the course. So this particular assignment that I just created, actually I have not added it to the gradebook. So I'm going to come over here, and here it is, Chapter 1 assignment. I'm going to give it a weight within the course itself. So I'm going to add it. Let's give it I'll give it a weight of 10 within the course. It keeps total, a running total of all the points within it, and I'm going to save that. And so what I have here is I've got the Chapter 1 assignment, and when the new assignment comes in, it's highlighted in red for me. And you can see that John has an assignment. If I click on that as the instructor, I will be able to see the info that was entered. I can see the file attachment. I can click on it. It gets downloaded. I could bring up the PowerPoint. At this point, I think you'll trust me that it's there, so I don't want to actually open that up. And I'll give a grade of 9 out of 10. Click on Save. It'll all calculate 90% for that particular assignment, as well as updating the grade for the student for the entire course. And similarly, we have the support for question banks. You can create your own question banks and then create exams from those question banks, so that you have quite a bit of flexibility and quite a bit of control over the course itself.
All right, so as George mentioned, there's a lot of great things within the platform that allow teachers to do things that, while you do see these kind of things within standard LMSs, I think in many ways what Trinity has done is provide a real level of elegance that's missing in a lot of these courses. As you saw, the ability to create assignments, the ability to do attachments, the ability to add these things to your grade books is really very straightforward and very simple. And I compare that to some of the online learning platforms that I use for my other work, and where you would typically be faced with 2 or 3 or 4 clicks within the system to do something simple like just upload a file and then attach that file. Within the Trinity system, as George demonstrated, it's really quite easy to do that. We also mentioned before the ability to add forums. You can add forums as an instructor, so if you want to have a topic that you want to discuss, or you want to create forums that allow your students to collaborate on projects that you've assigned them to do, you can do that within the course. Also have a course glossary that's provided, and this is a fairly extensive listing of the kinds of terms that a student would be expected to know, not only for the exam, but again also for employability. So if they're going for a job interview, they know they have the language down that they're going to be required to know. The other nice thing about, and I'm going to dip into one of Sheri's chapters here, is the ability for students to ask questions directly within different elements of the chapter itself. So if they've got a question, they can post comments to the actual content itself, and then the instructor then has the ability to kind of review that, or students can work on that again collaboratively. So I'm going to go back a little bit again here to, this is chapter 8, where we start getting into doing a lot of work in CSS. I want to mention again that we have all the exercise files are included, and I've taught at the college level where the textbook comes and you get a CD, which is really nice, but not very practical in a lot of ways. So what we do is make these downloadable files that students simply download, and then we began earlier in the book showing them how to do actually site definitions. So every chapter is going to have all of the resources that the students would need. They're all built right into the book environment, so there's no need to have an additional website that students go to, no need for instructors to upload this content themselves. It's all really just kind of baked into the book as they go along. And we do go through, as we mentioned, we spend a fair amount of time because of the kind of some of the complexity of using Dreamweaver. Earlier chapters we go through the entire process of setting up a site. So every chapter within the book is set up as an individual website within Dreamweaver, and this allows students to move from one chapter to the other as if they were working with individual websites. So we go through the entire process. Also want to mention that the entire book is cross-platform. So while you'll see basically a mixture in some cases of screen captures, so these screen captures happens to be from Windows, Sheri and I both work in a cross-platform way as we provide these materials. So you'll see screen captures from both Macintosh and Windows. So it doesn't really matter what kind of environment you have at your school or what the students are going to be using when they're completing these assignments. They're going to find screen captures that look appropriate for the platform that they're using. And of course, within Dreamweaver, there aren't a tremendous amount of differences from one platform to another, but where there are, we call those out and make sure that students are aware of those. I also want to mention that the material that we're looking at here is compatible with tablet devices. There's not an application or an app that has to be downloaded. It's simply web-based content that works really well on an iOS or an Android tablet or whatever the case may be. So if you're working with students in an environment where they may have the luxury of having a tablet device that they sit next to their computer where they're actually doing their work, they can have that textbook open on the tablet while they're completing the assignments that they've been given. I know one of the things that we want to make sure that we have people aware of is the instructor materials, and these are only viewable to instructors, not to students, obviously. So again, there's not a separate teacher's edition, but there are all of these different chapter materials that are included that have things like completed project files, like have things like the PowerPoint presentations that you might want to give to your students, a look at a final project that you might assign to your students. As we go through the book, as I mentioned, there are all of these chapters are hands-on. Even though in Chapter 1 we begin with the fundamentals, there are hands-on activities that go along with every chapter within the book. So at the end of the book, at the end of the course, your students will have built 3 complete websites, beginning with a very simple static website that we start them out with, and ending up with a much more advanced website by the time they're done. And they'll have had the opportunity to work with some of the emerging technologies, again, like jQuery, and looking at mobile and fluid designs and responsive design and all the kinds of things that people are going to be asked to do if they're going to be going into this as a career or improving their skills, all the kinds of things that they would need to know how to do in a modern web design job that they might have out there. So again, Sheri goes into HTML5 in some detail. We talk about what HTML5 is, and again, this is a great example of how it's easy for us as the authors to keep this material up to date. Now, Sheri and I are currently working on the Creative Cloud version of the book, and that will be available as a separate book rather than as an update to this book, but that will be available for the fall of next year. So we'll be spending the next couple of months going through and revising screenshots and taking a real hard look at the content that we've provided, but we will have a Creative Cloud version available. So again, what's really great about a book like this is that as you know, browsers emerge and standards emerge and things change over time as they constantly do within the world of web design, we're able to update the materials within the book to stay current at all times. So our going forward, as we release the Creative Cloud version of this book, we'll be able to keep up with any changes that are introduced as the W3C does things like releasing and actually promulgating new tags and new standards and new methods for doing things on the web. We'll also be able to keep up with the industry and again what the expectations are. So where maybe 2 years ago there was a greater focus on producing applications and that were standalones and created in HTML, then delivered into an environment where they could be downloaded as an application either for iOS or for Android. The current trend and the current thinking these days is more in lines with responsive design. So rather than a custom-built, specialized application that has to be kept up to date, the current design standards call for websites that are created in a fluid and responsive way so that they are viewable and people can access the information whether they're on a smartphone or a tablet device or on a full desktop or laptop computer. So again, that's one of the great things that we really love about this kind of book. And I know from my own experiences in working in the K-12 environment, where high school books are bought on, well, all of our books are bought on a 5-year purchase cycle. In many cases where books are purchased, they're out of date within a year or a year and a half, and at that point they're nothing but dust collectors. So with an ebook like this and a platform like Trinity, we have the opportunity to always stay up to date. We can always be current. We can make sure that as the authors of the book, we're providing the instructors who use the book with the most current methods that are available and really kind of keep abreast of developments and trends within the web design world, so that your students and you can stay up to date and can stay right there on the leading edge of what is available. So again, we go into a fair amount here with media queries and responsive web, and understanding how that's all done within the Dreamweaver work environment. And as again you see, we have lots of really great screen captures that really show exactly what a student would be expected or what a student would encounter as they work through all of the different exercises within the book. So I'm assuming that Sheri has not got her microphone back on yet. Is that right, George?
I'm going to throw a couple questions out that have come in. Let me just give you control, Sheri. There you go. And one of the questions I have is, so am I understanding it right that the book is available only online but not in hard copy? Is that correct? And the answer is yes, it is only online.
That is correct. It's entirely digital.
And actually,
I just mentioned, and I don't know if we have any K-12 folks here. I know at least in the state of Florida, there's a huge initiative on to push people into digital formats. So the requirement is that now, within the next 2 years, all of our textbooks, at least 50% of our textbooks, must be available in a digital format. So it's kind of where the world is going.
And one of the other comments I'd like to make, Kim, with regards to that, is that in the book there's just so much content that is available for download. So I know that for every exercise, you have all the files that are required so that a student they can have all the images. And I don't know how that would work effectively in the printed world.
Typically in the past, what students would do is they would have a CD or DVD that would come with the book that they purchased. Right. I know as an instructor, I would typically put those files onto a website somewhere to facilitate them downloading it and having access at home. But within this environment, that's not required any longer. Students simply download it regardless of where they are.
Great. Another question that I have is, can other students see the questions posed by one of them? And so the answer is that with the content, you can set up comments underneath each article so that students can post questions or comments that go along with that article, and other students can see and respond to that. But in addition, as Kim mentioned, forums can also be set up by the instructor, and they can set up a forum where discussions can go on. So in that regard, yes, they can collaborate within the confines of the course.
And that's under the that's under the control of the instructor.
So Sheri, I think you're unmuted.
Okay. One of the projects is with the CSS3 media queries. As you drag this in, you'll see that it adapts to both the tablet screen sizes and the phone screen sizes. So it just adapts that one layout by using CSS3 media queries, so the students will learn to do that. And they'll even learn how to add video and audio to so that they work on the iOS devices, which, as we know, Flash is no longer a viable option, so they learn to use HTML5 video. Then there are also, in the instructor materials, lots of PowerPoint presentations, like there's one for responsive web design. So if you as an instructor are still trying to wrap your head around some of these things like HTML5, CSS3, responsive web design, CSS3 media queries, we provide the PowerPoint presentations for you to show your students and also to bone up a little bit yourself. There are also midterm and final projects. For the final project, you get a 16-page document for the final site project, and you can add your own course name, your instructor name. You can add your own institution name in the footer here. There's a table of contents. So this gives your students an actual project. So they're going beyond the technique of using Dreamweaver, the technical skills, and they're getting to be creative, which is something Adobe is pushing hard now. The creativity that is a 21st century skill that is going to be very important for students. So that's the final, and then there's also a midterm. And that is a project also that uses both a graphics program. They can use Fireworks as in here, or Photoshop. And again, you can put in your course name and instructor's name. So you've got PowerPoint presentations, you've got midterms and finals, and all kinds of projects. And the midterm, the students will be producing something like this that has 2 equal columns. They use faux column technique. So the instructor's materials have many, many added value projects going on. For instance, Chapter 2, in these materials, you've got a design document, and I have my students use Adobe Portfolio so that they create a PDF with everything for their site in this one portfolio. But you wouldn't have to do that if you didn't have that available. But they create the site proposal, the morgue file, they create a color scheme, assemble their images, the flow chart, the wireframe and comp. And then there are all kinds of sketch grids and a style tile that they can use. All of this is linked. They can just grab this material from this one location. So those are some of the added value things that you get in the instructor's materials. Those are jumping off points where the students can actually take all the technical skills they learn and become creative and actually be able to see the point of what they were learning. So that's, I know Kim took you through some of those chapters, the 8 through 16 chapters, and so that's about it for now with that.
That was great. Thanks, Sheri. Thanks for. Well, I hope the audience can take away from this how much is available in this course. And again, it's not just the 16 chapters, but it's all the ancillary materials that are associated with those, which allow any instructor to have a complete course. And in addition to that, having the instructor materials, which are only available to instructors, the students do not have access to that, which can also help in preparing course lectures in class themselves. And so one of the questions we also have is, how many weeks does it take realistically to work through the entire course? Kim and Sheri, what would you say to that? Is it a full semester?
Oh, at least. I actually use most of my materials in my own classes, and yeah, I mean, we have to really keep the pace up to get through it in one semester. We have to skim a lot over the responsive web design. We're going to actually add a responsive web design class at our college and a follow-up class, so that this will be a whole year. So ideally, if you have a year, you can really go into detail, but you could ostensibly do it in a semester if you really push the pace.
And another question I have here is that if I'm not going to cover all the materials, is there a way for me to organize the chapters in a way that I want to teach? And the answer is absolutely yes. And so one of the points of the Trinity Platform is that it is flexible enough to allow the authors to reorganize the content in a way that suits the way that they want to teach to their course and to their students. So that's one of the things that is really different about the difference between getting an ebook in getting a book on the Trinity platform is the amount of control that we leave in the hands of the instructors. So let me just
so
see
if
if
the
there's
instructor
any...
simply wanted to hide 2 or 3 chapters, they knew they weren't going to get to that, the students would never see that.
Yeah, and that's great because it doesn't confuse kids, and it allows them to focus on what they really need to focus on, which is what the instructor is really driving towards.
Right, and then to add a little bit to what Sheri said, so if you were considering using this as a year-long course, there's enough material to really give you a year-long course if you want to supplement it with additional projects or additional topics of your own. So as Sheri indicated, she can do it if she stays real focused and goes quickly in one semester, or there's enough material where you could stretch it out and use this book over the course of 2 semesters or an entire school year.
And if you wanted to use just 1 semester and you wanted to teach to the ACA exam, you could go through chapters 1 through 11 and accomplish that goal.
That's correct.
Yeah, and then 12 through 16 are going to be, the HTML5, CSS3, and those topics do not really appear on the exam.
And one other question is, if it does go over 2 semesters, will the student lose access to the book? And the answer to that is no. What we do here at Trinity is a little different than some of our competitors. We do not lease the book. We do not rent the book. Students are purchasing infinite or indefinite access to the book. And the reason behind that is that we want this to be an online library for them, if you will, where they can go back and refer to it. They can see some of their old assignments. They can see their notes that they've created, just as they would in I will say, the old days when we would buy books and leave them on the shelves of our dorm room. So again, if it is more than 1 semester, that's fine.
Yeah, George, the way that works is at the end of the course, the student is they're removed from the course, but they still maintain access to the book. Is that right?
Actually, they will still remain in that course, and so they still have all the access to the material that they have had. But if a new course is started, they would be added to that course because they already have access. Correct.
The other thing I would like to mention just real briefly is I really do see this as the only way going forward in terms of the new model with the Creative Cloud. I just updated CS6 for Dreamweaver yet again, and you get so many changes in the UI that with standard books or even the lynda.com videos, I'm teaching some Edge Animate banners, and I'm using a video that has changed. The Edge Animate software has changed just since that video course was created, and we're just having a heck of a time following it. So when you are able to go in and update every time you update your software and make sure that those images are always current and the directions are always current, it really is kind of the only way forward in terms of the new model for software.
Well, I think we've come to the end of our hour, and I just wanted to follow up with the next steps. So if you've liked what you've seen, you can request a complete examination copy from Trinity. You can just email us, and if you like it, you can adopt it for your class. And what happens is we will set up a course for you. We will make you the administrator of that course. You can manipulate the content the way you want. You can add your own material, and then you would invite your own students in when the semester starts. In addition, if you like what you've heard and you have your own material and you're thinking about becoming an author, we have a program to allow you to get on board, and we have a team we call our Assisted Self-Publishing Team, which means that if you have your content, we will work with you to get that online, and as Kim and Sheri know, we will help you market that book. So if you have any questions like that, please email Greg Pippin, who is our Sales and Business Development Director here at Trinity, and you see his email address on the screen right now, greg.pippin@trinity.com. Sales@trinity.com, if you forget, we'll also find him as well. So once again, Kim and Sheri, thank you again for spending some time with me and with our audience.